evening, Jayal. Hi, how are you doing?
Doing good. So happy to host you here in this edition of Regal Live.
Thank you.
So
Happy to be here.
yeah, happy to host as well. I think as people are joining in, I think this is the Regal Live Series. This is the 23rd edition that we are doing. So it's a weekly live series that aims to enable coaches to build a prosperous coaching business by becoming the best coaches that they can be. So it's being hosted by Regal Unlimited, which is a leadership development company that has over a decade of excellence in disrupting leadership development through coaching and coach training. So happy to host Shruti Kulkarni for this series. So brief introduction about Shruti before we get into the discussion part. So Shruti Kulkarni is a coach, an agilist, and an artist. So she's a coach and a passionate agilist based in Hyderabad. So with experience across industries, currently with Synchrony Financial, she works with individuals and teams to cultivate agility through coaching, training, and mentoring. So she's a strong believer in creating safe spaces for honest conversations and learning. So she partners to unlock potential by focusing on adaptability and growth. Her research work includes agility through gratitude and developing a behavioral approach, humble agile. Shriti is an active dot mandala artist and coaches through art called Power of Pause. Welcome, Shruti, again to this episode.
Thank you.
So I think multiple roles that you are into, as the introduction went about. So it's a coach, an agilist, and an artist. So probably we'll start with agile. Maybe in simple terms, what agile is.
It's a very simple and a loaded question. I think everybody has a different interpretation. Very fancy term in the last decade, but it's just in plain and simple terms, it's a collection of different ways of working, um, and it aligns with the word, the English verb that means ability to adapt. Right? It's a way of solving problems where, while we are working towards a solution, we are also continuously learning on those ways. So something that's incremental and through small and frequent deliveries, we're able to work through. I think that's the whole concept of agility as an umbrella term. And I know we're not talking about it in 20 minutes, but there's also a manifesto, which is kind of a set of principles and a guideline, if I may say that, which one would benefit from following if they'd like to learn about agile. It's prominently made popular by the software industry, but I think across various brands, whether it's Spotify or whether it's Zara, even in the manufacturing industry. So there's a lot of non-software industries also that use different ways of working from agile. Anybody listening to this are going to throw Scrum, Kanban, a few popular names across. But yeah, it's a collection of different ways of working.
Okay. Yeah, real simple terms of explaining it. And maybe for the audience, if there are any perspectives that you want to share, maybe in simple terms that if you want to explain, so please use the chat to send in your inputs. Moving on, Shruti, I think I have seen quite a few of agile professionals coming into coaching. So they have become ICF credential coaches, and you being one of them as a PCC coach with the agile background. So what's your perspective of that?
Well, I just place a small plug-in. I'm about to finish my PCC. I'm not there yet, but I'm going to manifest that you said that and I complete it as soon as possible. Firstly, in no shape or form, I think agile coaching equal to professional coaching. I think we learned that through ICF about what professional coaching means. Agile coaching does include a lot of technical knowledge as well, but in hindsight, I think I refer to Lisa Atkins's Agile Core Competencies model, the framework that she brought up, out of which one of the skill sets for an agilist is coaching. And when I'm going to refrain from using the word agile coach, I think any agilist, whether it's a scrum master, whether it's a Kanban lead, we're all in influential positions. So anybody who's an agilist in general, holding the tools of coaching, collaboration, feedback, adaptation, just contracting in general can become so much clearer in under this umbrella of agile, right? So knowing when to adapt to the coaching skill set as an agilist is a wonderful skill to have. You're not always solving for problems, you're also looking for different ways to adapt. You're looking at innovation, you're looking at creative methods to look at solutions. So all that comes with curiosity, and the ICF core competencies gives us a leverage towards that skill set as well. I think we live in a pretty rapidly growing time. With chat GPT versions change every hour, if not every minute. So coaching awareness really helps within the organization, and also as a professional coach when you go outside for any coaching engagement as an external agilist as well. I think it's a very good uh, tool to have in your kitty to understand how conversation flow can occur. I think overall that's been a bigger USP for me personally in the last decade to be aware of.
I think what I'm hearing is about maybe the two professions complementing each other is how I am hearing it, because I am not familiar with what agile is, not been in that space. So from coaching perspective, from whatever you said, I think can see that kind of synchronization happening, certain common aspects between coaching and the agile professional. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what's coming up for me. So maybe extending that further. Um, so how has coaching helped you, or maybe knowing the competencies from the ICF standpoint, bringing it back into the to the agile world? How has that helped you?
I think I did dive into drawing parallels between the two worlds and might take more than 20 minutes to clearly talk about that. But let me bring up some examples. So, for example, one of the initial learnings from the Agile Manifesto is individuals and interactions over processes and tools. So, that means we focus comparatively more on people and the interactions more than the processes and tools. And I use the word comparatively very, very, very importantly, because uh, just for anybody who's not aware, it doesn't mean that we don't have processes and tools. It's just one of them is more important than the other. And from the beginning, from the foundational core competencies that we have, for example, demonstrating integrity and honesty, I think when you're in a collaborative environment in agile workspaces, you deal with a lot of distributed teams where you don't always get to see the face behind the person or the blob behind the team's chat, right? There's just digital blobs, as I call them. So there's a lot of honesty and integrity, and um, also maintaining that curious mindset to understand everybody is there for a skill set. Everybody needs to be respected for the fact that they have been hired for a particular skill set. So that factor plays very hugely in the agile world, and it is very much complemented when you have the foundational competency of ethical practices, right? So that's the first thing that comes to mind. Also, like I was talking about curiosity, when you're open and you're flexible and you're very client centric, it kind of takes the limelight away from what you want to what people you're working with want, right? And uh, contracting becomes clearer because ICF core competencies gives us a foundation of understanding what success looks like, and understanding what the engagement is going to look like. We set expectations that, okay, I'm going to walk in, but what do I walk out with? I think you and I both are aware, and any coach who's listening is also aware that building a conversation, starting a conversation is as important as wanting to end the conversation, also. So I think the core competencies give us a good framework around how we can start as well as how we can end. I think as an agilist for over a decade now, I can say that collaborations that I've been a part of, or um, the kind of teamwork that I've been able to do. Even currently, I work for a company called Synchrony Financial, a very coaching centric organization. I'm very blessed to be working with some of the best people in the world. Um, I think all this is not possible without trust and safety, right, across teams and individuals. There's a lot of focus on this from the core competency standpoint that I'm able to derive from. And building that takes time. It takes us a certain ability sometimes, right? So it's just taking a step back, reevaluating what the needs of the client, or in an agile workspace, what the need of the teams are, what the need of the individuals that we are working with are. I think lastly, I'd like to call out effective communication because it is the key element if you want to be successful as an agilist. It's not just about, okay, here's the problem, go ahead, solve this. I think we're very solution oriented, at least from observation that I see with a lot of agile professionals. We're very solution oriented, which is awesome. Uh, and the business requires that. But adding the toolkit of coaching kind of um, ensures that we're listening to respond and not to react, and that kind of helps. So there's a lot of guidelines in the core competencies in terms of effective communication that has been very helpful for me to learn from and implement. So in the last few years that I've known of this, the amalgamation kind of um, works well. I know I said I won't talk much about it, but these are the examples that I kind of look forward to sharing.
Hmm. Quite interesting. I think you spoke about contracting, then trust and safety. And earlier you mentioned about listening, talking about communication. I think multiple aspects from the core competencies showing up as we are talking about it. I think the other thing which just came into my attention is a Six Sigma process. I mean, I've been a Six Sigma black belt, and when you said about process, right? So probably that's what is coming up: where to start at, where to end, in
Yeah.
scope, out scope, being clear, and very process driven approach when it comes to Six Sigma. So it just complements each other. We never, probably it's being more aware, we will know that it's working. I think that's another thing which is coming up, right? So how are we aware in terms of what are the experiences that we are carrying, and how is that playing, how each one of them is complementing each other? So probably more we talk about that, I think more things will come out. So that's kind of the takeaway which I could see. So moving on, Shruti, on personal front, I think the topic itself we want to discuss not just on the professional side alone, agility from a personal life standpoint. What do
I
you say?
like that. I'm gonna learn from your words here because you mentioned the different experiences that we carry, right? And I believe in transferable skills. So personally, I professionally, I learned the term agile much later in my life. Uh, Anybody who knows me knows that I come from an army family. I grew up across 14 states and 3 countries, and I speak quite a few languages. So I think adaptability wasn't something that I was doing for a paycheck. It was kind of the fuel of life because every 2 years we were shifting, every 2 years I was changing schools. I needed to identify who can I befriend right now. So adaptability was kind of the fuel of how I was surviving, keeping myself upbeat, and it just seemed like very normal way of life in the bubble that I was living in. And personally, that has been a tremendous help for me to be able to love the agile workspace in a professional front because it kind of smoothens like butter into. I don't believe in the concept, and if this is just my personal opinion, is when people say this is not personal, it's professional. I think we truly bring our personal selves into our workspaces. And if we can demonstrate agility or adaptability or um, just understanding, curiosity in general, then that kind of leads towards transforming into our professional workspaces also. It doesn't feel very heavy on the shoulders. It doesn't feel very like we're dragging our feet through the project. When will I get over with this? Uh, it, and if it is to be looked at in an easier way, then adapting to it personally can really reflect on your professional life as well, or so I've experienced. And that was kind of the hindsight of researching as well. So the couple of years I spent on researching Humble Agile, which is a behavioral approach of who to be, because the Agile Manifesto talks about what to do, when to do. Um, I found a I found a gap where it doesn't talk about who to be, right? And that's from my personal experience, from an experimental research is what I had conducted, is just narrowing it down to some behaviors, some qualities that an individual can benefit from having if they're looking forward to being agile personally or professionally. I think for me personally, my personal life has really influenced my professional life in terms of how agile I can be. It's not easy. Even now, I feel sometimes when something new is just thrown at my face, I feel like, all right, just give me 2 minutes. I'm going to adapt to this naturally. But for it to come naturally, I need a little time to settle in. But I think it comes in different shapes, forms, and ways, right? As long as we're ready to learn, learning is key. So even if it takes time, if we are able to do that, I think, yeah, that's how my two worlds kind of collided. And I kind of call myself an agilist, whether it's in the professional sense or personal sense. If someone gives me feedback, I'm happy to look into it and see how constructive that can be taken. And yeah, not everything comes in a constructive feedback form. You and I both know that, but trying to adapt to it as much as I possibly can.
Interesting. So 14 states, 3 countries.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think what I could hear from what you said is about the seamless way of things having flown from the personal life to professional life. And when you look back, probably you're connecting it back now. Probably at that point in time you didn't know, right? So that's how we started the conversation, saying that as an agile person you can look at it from that perspective, but you didn't have an idea about it when you grow up.
True.
Interesting perspectives. And maybe the final bit which I wanted to talk about is you're an artist. That's what I mean. Three different ways you call yourself as, right? So coach, an agilist, and an artist. So maybe let's talk about the artist part. So how do you blend the art and coaching?
Firstly, just a comment on that. I think it's in today's world, it's very hard to define yourself in one word. We're all evolving human beings. I find it a superpower if you can describe yourself in a word, but I need three. So that's my power. And in terms of coaching, I am neurodivergent. I was diagnosed with dyslexia, ADHD, and dyscalculia much late in life. And life started to make sense after that when I realized how to connect the dots and what were the struggles I was going through. So, art was a way for me to process information. I process information very differently than a lot of my peers do. Some might be slow, some might be fast ways of processing for me. And art was a form that I started 5 years ago. And in today's date, I think coaching through art has become a very primary thing that I talk about, especially people who want to focus on adaptability, people who want to introspect. I think it's a great outlet for introspection. And the workshops that I do are called Power of Pause. And it's about it's named accordingly because the dot mandalas that I do, uh, it might seem like, oh, this is just a dotting process. But once you get into it, and it takes a lot of precision, but also if you've made a pattern a little wrongly, how do you adapt to it to make it into something that might look acceptable to you? And the concept of beauty is very virtual, very superficial, I think. But that also I take a stab at that as well. I think it's for children or for adults. The Power of Pause workshop I've seen has a lot of impact. So diving into a few core competencies of coaching, but also a few concepts of self introspection and adaptability is what I blend into the workshops that I do. So whether it's one on one or group, and maybe the next time we meet, we talk a little more in detail about that.
Yeah. I think definitely requires more time to talk about it, and probably we got a sneak peek of whatever things that you do, certain perspectives that you shared about coaching, agility, and a little bit about the mandala art part. So, any closing comments before we wind up? We were just on time.
Well, as a coach, I'm not great at marketing, but if anybody's on Instagram, I'm going to give the plug in. I'm called Peace of Colors, which is peace as in Shanti and not uh, peace as in a bit. So PEACE of colors. And if you're interested, reach out. And I'm really grateful for this conversation. Thank you, JL, for holding the space, and to
Yeah.
everyone who's listening in.
Yeah, no, Subhash has asked a question. So how does the artist in you and the agilist come together?
I think art is, and I recently spoke about this, art is very graceful and forgiving. So when you move from your existing path and you move into something that is not thought of, it's the unknown, uh, art gives you a way to be graceful with it. And it kind of lets you lose your biases. It kind of lets you embrace that unknown and the change. So I think that's also what I deal with as an agilist. So uh, combining the two forces, I think the process is what we focus on, and the outcome is what we make of it. So yeah, that's how.
Hmm. Nice, seamless integration of three different facets is how it looks like, but ultimately, I think some commonality is emerging as we speak. That's kind of the key takeaway for me from this conversation. So happy to have hosted you, Shruti. So probably another time we will expand the conversation further and then see to learn more from you.
Thank you so much, JL, and thank you, Subhash, for the question. Thank you.